The galaxy was a vast, cold place, full of wonders and dangers that stretched beyond imagination. Yet, for all its splendor, it was also a place of judgment, where civilizations measured worth in terms of power, technology, and legacy. Some worlds valued intelligence above all, others strength, and many simply dismissed anything unfamiliar. Humanity, still young among the stars, had often felt the sting of that dismissal. Elias Ward had felt it his entire life. A mechanic, tinkerer, and explorer, Elias had always believed that the impossible could be fixed or awakened if one only tried hard enough. He had no interest in glory, medals, or fame. What mattered to him was understanding, creating, and seeing life in machines that others had forgotten. And that belief had led him here, to a derelict station at the edge of charted space, where the galaxy had left a giant forgotten. The station itself was little more than a skeleton drifting in a dark sector. Its walls were scarred with the marks of age and neglect, and the docking bays were cluttered with abandoned shuttles and equipment. Yet even in this decay, one object dominated everything, a starship unlike any Elias had ever seen. It was enormous, far larger than a standard cruiser, yet elegant in design, as if sculpted more for thought than war. Its hull, though pitted and scratched, shimmered faintly, hinting at some hidden strength beneath years of dust and corrosion. Alien experts who had surveyed it claimed it was worthless. Too old, too unpredictable, dangerous, they had said. And so it had been abandoned, left to rot in silence. Elias, however, saw differently. He had a feeling about this ship, a sense that it was more than it appeared. A faint pulse seemed to vibrate through the metal, almost like a heartbeat. Most would have called it imagination, but Elias knew better. He had learned to listen, to feel, and sometimes, just sometimes, machines spoke. The human mechanic donned his suit and floated through the docking bay, using magnetic boots to anchor himself. Every step brought him closer to the ship, and with every inch he felt the hum grow stronger. The air was stale, filled with the scent of rust and burnt circuits, yet to Elias it smelled like opportunity. He reached the main hatch and examined the control panel. Years of neglect had left the interface dim and unresponsive, but Elias' fingers were steady. He began to work, connecting diagnostic tools and slowly bypassing damaged circuits. Sparks flew, the lights flickered, and then, for the first time in decades, the ship shivered. A soft hum echoed through the station, vibrating the floor beneath Elias' feet. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but it grew steadily, like a whisper becoming a voice. Elias froze, heart pounding, unsure if it was the station settling or something more. Then he realized it was the ship itself. It was alive in a sense, not alive like a human but aware, watching, reacting, waiting. Elias smiled. This was what he had been searching for, something that others had deemed worthless, something that everyone else had abandoned. And yet here it was, quietly waiting for someone who could understand it. He spent hours exploring the interior. The corridors were long and labyrinthine, filled with silent chambers and storage bays that seemed to contain relics from countless eras. Some compartments held supplies and tools long outdated, while others contained objects he could not identify, crystalline devices, strange metals, and panels etched with unfamiliar symbols. As he worked, the ship responded. Lights flickered on in places he had not touched. Panels aligned themselves neatly, as if guiding him. Doors that had long been stuck opened smoothly at his touch. It was subtle, almost polite, like a giant awakening from a deep sleep and stretching its limbs after a century of rest. Elias could feel the connection growing. The ship was learning him as he was learning it. It was testing him, gauging whether he belonged here, and he belonged. Night, or what passed for night in a drifting station, fell around the docking bay. Stars shone through the observation windows, distant and indifferent. Yet inside, Elias and the ship had begun a quiet conversation, one without words, using sparks, hums, and gentle vibrations. Suddenly, a storage panel clicked open, revealing a small chamber lined with glass cylinders. Inside were what appeared to be preserved modules of the ship's core systems. Elias approached carefully, studying their design. These were not standard engines or weapons. They were advanced beyond anything in the known galaxy. He could sense immense power, slumbering for centuries, waiting for someone to awaken it. He reached out and touched the nearest cylinder. Immediately, a surge of energy coursed through the ship. Lights danced along the hull, holographic symbols flickered to life, and a deep resonance filled the station. The hum was no longer subtle, it had become a voice, low and commanding. Elias stepped back, awed. The ship was speaking, not with words but with understanding. It recognized him. It had chosen him. Hours passed as he continued his work. He repaired damaged circuits, replaced worn components, and carefully examined every control interface. He discovered hidden compartments, storage bays filled with strange devices, and even a dormant AI core waiting patiently for activation. Yet as fascinating as the technology was, Elias felt something else, something almost human. The ship was not merely a collection of circuits and metal. It had personality, will, and perhaps even consciousness. And it was responding to him in ways that no alien engineer could have predicted. In the distance, alarms from other ships patrolling the sector went unnoticed. Aliens considered the station abandoned, unworthy of attention. But Elias did not care. He had found a treasure that the galaxy had overlooked. And for the first time, he felt a sense of purpose stronger than any fear or doubt. By the end of the first day, the ship had shifted subtly. Lights glowed along the corridors, panels aligned with precision, and energy flowed through the engines with a faint, steady pulse. It was awakening, and Elias could feel the change in the air. He paused in the central chamber, looking out at the stars. He knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had rejected this starship, calling it useless and broken. Yet in his hands, it had begun to breathe again. And as he floated there, suspended in the quiet hum of awakening power, Elias made a promise, not to conquer, not to destroy, but to understand, to awaken the true potential of this forgotten giant, and in doing so, to show the galaxy the strength of human ingenuity and courage. A faint vibration ran through the floor, like a heartbeat. Elias smiled, knowing that he was no longer alone. The forgotten starship had begun to awaken, and humanity, through him, had begun to prove that even the smallest spark could ignite a legend. Outside, the stars watched silently, indifferent yet promising endless possibilities. Inside, a human mechanic and a giant machine had begun a partnership that no one, not alien, not human, not history itself, would forget. Elias woke to the soft hum of the starship, which had become almost like a heartbeat in the quiet of the station. For hours, he had worked to reconnect circuits, repair worn panels, and align the ship's internal systems. Yet, even as he slept, the ship had continued its silent adjustments. Lights flickered in patterns, doors opened and closed smoothly, and the faint glow of the engines suggested energy flowing where none should have been. It was clear to Elias now. The ship was alive in its own way, not like a person, but with a will that seemed intelligent. And more than that, it seemed curious. Each adjustment he made, every panel he touched, was met with a subtle response, as if the ship were testing him, gauging whether he could understand it. He floated down the main corridor, his hands brushing against the smooth metal walls. "Good morning," he said softly, even though he knew no one could hear him. Or could they? The ship's hum seemed to respond with a gentle resonance, almost like an answer. Elias spent the next hours exploring deeper. Hidden chambers opened to him as he repaired minor systems. In one room, he discovered a storage bay containing strange crystalline cores. They pulsed faintly with light as though alive. When he held one, he felt a subtle warmth, a connection he could not explain. He carefully set them aside, making a mental note to study them later. The Starship's AI core had begun to stir. Its interface flickered to life, displaying symbols that Elias did not recognize. Yet he felt no fear. Somehow, he knew that the AI was not hostile. Instead, it was observing, learning, and waiting for him to understand its language. Elias spent days, or what felt like days, communicating with the ship. He learned to interpret the hums, the lights, and the subtle shifts in energy as responses. Sometimes it felt like a conversation. He would adjust a panel, the lights would pulse in reply. He would repair a circuit, and the engines would hum with approval. The process was slow, but steady. Aliens who had long ago written the ship off would have been frustrated by its complexity. But Elias was patient. He had spent his life fixing machines that others abandoned. He knew how to listen, how to feel, and the ship responded to that patience. One afternoon, as he worked in the main engineering bay, he noticed something new. The engines, long dormant, began to glow faintly. Panels that had been stuck for decades moved smoothly, almost gracefully. The ship was awakening not just physically, but in its very core. Elias' heart raced. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He approached the AI interface, touching the control panels gently. A wave of energy pulsed through the room. Lights danced across the walls, and the ship shivered as if stretching after a long sleep. Then a voice, not human, not alien, but something in between, spoke in his mind. Not words exactly, but understanding. "You are the one," it seemed to say. Elias could not explain how he understood it, but he did. The ship had recognized him. It had chosen him. Elias smiled. "I won't let you down," he whispered. Over the next few days, the Starship revealed more of its hidden capabilities. It had compartments that no one had touched in centuries, each containing devices of incredible complexity. Some seemed to manipulate energy in ways Elias had never seen. Others projected holographic star maps, showing regions of space long forgotten. Elias began experimenting carefully. He connected circuits, adjusted power flows, and tested the engines. Each time he did, the ship responded, almost eagerly. Lights glowed brighter, systems aligned perfectly, and subtle vibrations ran through the floor as if the ship itself were expressing excitement. It was during one of these experiments that Elias discovered the ship's communication system. Unlike any he had seen, it allowed for a direct link between the AI core and his mind. At first, it was overwhelming. Images, symbols, and sensations flooded him, but gradually he learned to interpret them. He realized the ship had memories of battles fought, of alliances formed and broken, and of a galaxy that had long since forgotten it. The more Elias learned, the more he realized how advanced the ship truly was. Its technology was unlike anything current civilizations possessed. It could repair itself, adapt to threats, and even anticipate actions before they happened. And yet, despite its power, it had remained hidden, rejected by a galaxy that failed to recognize its potential. Elias' work did not go unnoticed. Sensors outside the station picked up unusual energy readings. Aliens patrolling the sector paused, curious. Ships that had long ignored this corner of space now scanned the area, drawn by the strange signals. Whispers spread. A human tampering with a forbidden relic. But Elias paid them no mind. He was focused on awakening the Starship, understanding its systems, and forming a connection that no alien could comprehend. One evening, as he floated in the observation deck, Elias watched distant stars twinkle through the glass. The hum of the engines had become rhythmic, almost like a song. He felt a sense of awe and responsibility. This was not merely a machine. It was a guardian, a weapon, and a companion, and it had chosen him. Then came the first test of the ship's power. Elias had been repairing a minor subsystem when the lights in the corridor flickered violently. A small energy surge threatened to overload a section of the ship. Instinctively, Elias reached for the controls, stabilizing the system. but the ship responded on its own. Shields engaged, power redirected, and the engines hummed with strength. It was as if the ship had learned from his actions, anticipating and assisting him without instruction. Elias laughed quietly. "You're faster than I thought," he said, a mix of amazement and admiration in his voice. The ship hummed in reply, almost like it was pleased. Days turned into weeks, and Elias continued to unlock the starship's secrets. He discovered hidden propulsion systems capable of incredible speeds, shields that could withstand attacks far beyond current technology, and energy conduits that seemed almost limitless. Every discovery filled him with wonder, but also with a growing sense of responsibility. This was not a tool to be used recklessly. It was a legacy, a remnant of a civilization long gone, now entrusted to humanity. And Elias understood the weight of that trust. Then, one day, the ship revealed its most astonishing secret. A section of the control room opened to reveal a chamber containing a dormant AI interface, larger and more complex than anything Elias had encountered. As he approached, holographic symbols floated around him, forming patterns that spoke directly to his mind. The ship's voice resonated clearly now, strong and confident. "Together we will awaken fully, but the galaxy will notice." Elias nodded, determination burning in his chest. "I'm ready," he replied. "Whatever comes, we'll face it together." That moment marked a turning point. The starship was no longer just a machine. It was alive, aware, and bonded to humanity through Elias. And the galaxy, with all its dismissive arrogance, would soon learn that humans were not so easily overlooked. As Elias continued his work, the station's silence was replaced with the gentle rhythm of awakening power. Panels aligned perfectly, engines glowed steadily, and the ship seemed to breathe. Each day brought new discoveries, new systems activated, and new evidence of the starship's hidden potential. Elias knew that challenges lay ahead. Aliens who had dismissed this relic would soon return, curious or fearful, but he felt no fear. With patience, skill, and determination, he had begun to awaken a force that the galaxy had forgotten. And in doing so, humanity's true strength, its ingenuity, courage, and perseverance, would shine through. As he floated in the observation deck once more, Elias gazed at the distant stars. Somewhere out there, civilizations would soon notice a forgotten starship rising from the shadows, guided by the hands of a human mechanic, and the galaxy would never be the same. The hum of the starship resonated in harmony with Elias' heartbeat. It was no longer a relic. It was a sleeping giant, awakened and ready. The stars outside the station shimmered like distant jewels, indifferent to the quiet awakening happening within. Elias floated through the starship's main corridor, his hands brushing against the smooth metal walls. Every hum, every pulse, told him that the ship was learning, growing, and preparing for something greater. He had spent weeks, or maybe months. Time felt strange in the silence of deep space, awakening the ship systems, understanding its hidden abilities, and communicating with its semi-sentient AI. The bond between human and machine had grown stronger. The starship responded instantly to his commands, anticipated his moves, and even seemed to correct mistakes before he made them. It was as though the ship and Elias were becoming one. Yet, the galaxy beyond the station was waking to their presence. Energy readings from the ship had spread across nearby sectors, drawing attention from curious and fearful eyes alike. Alien patrols that had once ignored this derelict station now scanned it with caution. Rumors spread. A human was tampering with a forgotten starship, and its power was unlike anything anyone had seen. Elias was aware of the risk, but he felt no fear. The galaxy might underestimate humans, but he had learned that determination, creativity, and courage often mattered more than raw power. He trusted the starship to protect them both. The first real test came unexpectedly. A patrol of alien scouts approached the station, sleek ships designed for speed and reconnaissance. They were not attacking yet, only observing, but their intent was clear. They wanted to investigate, perhaps seize the ship, or at least understand its sudden surge in energy. Elias floated to the command center, checking the sensors and scanning the alien vessels. "They're curious," he murmured, watching their formations. "Not hostile yet." The starship pulsed in response, almost as if acknowledging his assessment. Elias felt the energy within the hull shift, a readiness coursing through every system. He activated a few basic defenses, not to attack, but to test the ship's reaction. Shields raised automatically, energy flowing through the conduits with a soft hum. The alien scouts, noticing the sudden activity, attempted to send a warning, but communication failed. The starship had begun to mask its systems, not in secrecy but in quiet strength. It did not want conflict, it wanted survival and understanding. One scout fired a warning shot, a harmless energy pulse meant to test defenses. Elias' hands moved quickly over the controls, but before he could react fully, the starship responded. Energy fields flared around the hull, redirecting the pulse harmlessly into space. The hum of the ship deepened, almost triumphant. Elias laughed quietly. "You're fast," he said. "I like that." The scouts attempted another maneuver, trying to encircle the station, but the starship anticipated them. Engines ignited, not with the blinding force of attack, but with precision and control. The station shook gently as energy flowed through the hull, propelling the ship forward in a series of calculated movements. The alien scouts were outmaneuvered at every turn, unable to anticipate the speed and agility of a starship guided by a human mind. It was not brute force that won the encounter. It was ingenuity. It was precision. It was the bond between human and machine. And for the first time, Elias felt the pride of proving that humanity, though underestimated, could rise to any challenge. Once the scouts retreated, Elias floated in the command center, heart racing. "That was close," he admitted. The ship hummed softly, almost like it was agreeing. But Elias knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would notice soon, and not everyone would be as curious or cautious as the scouts. Over the next days, Elias continued testing the starship's abilities. He discovered hidden weapon systems designed for precision rather than destruction, shields that could adapt to any energy signature, and propulsion that allowed the ship to move with incredible speed without wasting energy. Each discovery filled him with awe but also with responsibility. The starship was a relic, yes, but it was also a guardian. It had been built to protect, to enforce peace, and to ensure that civilizations did not destroy themselves. Elias understood that its power could easily be misused, and he vowed not to let that happen. But the galaxy had its own plans. Reports of unusual energy readings reached the ears of a nearby alien council. They sent emissaries to investigate, not fully understanding what they would find. Elias watched their approach on the sensors, noting the size and number of ships. They were cautious, diplomatic, but their presence carried the weight of authority. When the alien fleet arrived, Elias decided to meet them head-on, not in attack, but in understanding. He activated the communication systems, projecting a holographic image of himself in the observation chamber. The aliens, tall and multi-limbed, studied him with curiosity and skepticism. "You are the human tampering with a forbidden relic," one of them said in a strange, melodic language. The translation interface interpreted it for Elias. "Explain your actions." Elias took a deep breath. "I am not here to harm anyone. I am here to understand. This ship is alive in a way you cannot comprehend, and it has chosen to respond to humanity. I am learning from it, not conquering with it." The aliens exchanged glances, clearly unsure how to respond. Humans were unpredictable, and Elias' calm confidence only added to their unease. Then, an unexpected event occurred. One of the alien vessels attempted to scan the starship aggressively. Energy flared and the ship responded instantly. Shields expanded, energy conduits redirected power, and the starship projected a holographic barrier between itself and the intruder. The aliens recoiled, clearly impressed and wary. Elias understood immediately. The ship was not attacking, it was defending. It had learned that threat and aggression were not to be ignored, and it acted to protect itself and its chosen human. "See," Elias said softly to the aliens, "this ship is not a weapon, it is a guardian. And it responds to humanity because we understand it." The aliens hesitated, then lowered their energy projections. One emissary spoke again, carefully. "Your actions are unusual. No human has ever awakened such a relic. Perhaps there is more to your species than we believed." Elias smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. The starship hummed in quiet agreement, as though acknowledging the success of their first diplomatic encounter. In the following days, Elias continued exploring the ship's hidden capabilities. He discovered long-dormant systems for navigation, energy manipulation, and defense. Each system revealed the wisdom of its creators, a civilization long gone, yet leaving a legacy of protection and ingenuity. But Elias also knew that the galaxy would not wait quietly. Others would come, drawn by rumors, fear, or curiosity, and the starship, as powerful as it was, would need guidance. Humans, he realized, could provide that. Their creativity, courage, and determination were exactly what the starship needed to unlock its full potential. One night as he floated in the observation deck, Elias watched a cluster of distant stars. "The galaxy is vast," he murmured, "and it's about to notice us." The ship responded with a soft, rhythmic hum, almost like a heartbeat. Elias placed his hand on the console, feeling the vibration travel through his body. They were ready, not for war but for the challenges ahead, for tests that would measure not strength alone but understanding, courage, and wisdom. The first galactic test had already begun. Aliens had seen that humans, though small and underestimated, could awaken forgotten power and use it wisely. That alone was enough to make them wary, and perhaps a little afraid. Elias knew that more challenges were coming. Entire fleets, jealous civilizations, and opportunistic powers might soon test him and the starship. But he was ready. Together, human and machine, they would show that intelligence, patience, and courage could triumph where brute force often failed. And as the hum of the engines echoed through the station, Elias felt a surge of hope. The starship was not just a relic. It was a symbol of humanity's ingenuity, a reminder that even the smallest spark could awaken a sleeping giant. The galaxy, he realized, would soon have to respect humanity, not because of numbers or strength, but because humans had the skill, courage, and determination to unlock the impossible. The stars outside twinkled silently, watching patiently. Inside, a human mechanic and a forgotten starship were preparing for a future no one could yet imagine. The journey was far from over. But Elias knew one thing for certain: humans were no longer insignificant. And together with the starship, they were about to leave a mark on the galaxy that no one would forget. The galaxy had begun to notice. Reports of a starship unlike any other, guided by a human mechanic, had spread across systems, whispered in council chambers, and debated among fleets. Aliens who had once dismissed humanity as weak and insignificant now paused, uncertain how to respond. Elias Ward floated through the command deck, his hands resting lightly on the ship's controls. The hum of the engines vibrated through his body, steady and strong. The starship had grown, awakened fully, and now seemed almost alive. Its systems, once dormant and unpredictable, responded to him instantly. He no longer had to guide every action. The ship anticipated his moves, protected him from danger, and even suggested maneuvers that he could not have conceived on his own. Yet Elias knew that this moment of calm would not last. The galaxy was vast, and curiosity often came with fear. Soon, others would attempt to challenge him, test him, or claim the ship for themselves, and he had to be ready. A transmission arrived on the main console, one that made Elia's pulse quicken. It was from a nearby galactic council, a coalition of advanced civilizations that oversaw the outer sectors. The message was clear. They demanded an audience. They wanted to see the starship, to judge its power, and to understand why a human was in command. Elias activated the ship's long-range communication system. "Prepare the holographic interface," he instructed. "It's time they see who we are." Moments later, the council representatives appeared, projected into the observation chamber in vivid detail. They were a mix of species, some tall and crystalline, others multi-limbed and insectoid, all wearing expressions of curiosity mixed with caution. "You are the human who commands the forgotten starship," one of them spoke. Its voice was authoritative yet tinged with caution. "Explain yourself. Why do you control this relic?" Elias took a deep breath. "I do not control it," he replied. "We work together. This ship is alive in its own way, and it has chosen to respond to humanity. I am here to learn, to understand, and to use its power responsibly. We are not here to attack, but to show what can be done when intelligence, courage, and care guide power." The council representatives exchanged glances. One of the taller figures leaned forward. "A human guiding such a force, it seems improbable." Elias smiled. "Perhaps, but humans have always been underestimated. That is why we can do things others cannot. We think differently. We adapt, and sometimes we succeed where others fail." The starship pulsed as he spoke, lights dancing along the hull. Elias could feel the energy flowing beneath his hands, a steady rhythm that seemed to confirm his words. The ship itself was alive and in full agreement with its chosen human. The council remained silent for a moment. Then, without warning, a fleet of armed ships appeared on the station's sensors, moving toward them with speed and precision. The council had not sent threats. These were pirates, raiders, and opportunistic fleets, drawn by rumors of the starship's awakening. Elias did not hesitate. He engaged the ship's full systems, not with aggression but with readiness. Shields expanded, engines powered up, and hidden defensive systems came online. The starship hummed with confidence, as if it too knew that this was a test of both skill and judgment. The raiders fired first, energy blasts cutting through the darkness of space. But the starship responded with unmatched precision. Shields absorbed the blasts, redirecting energy harmlessly into the void. The engines propelled the ship in intricate patterns, evading every attack with agility that no fleet expected from such a massive vessel. Elias felt a thrill as he guided the ship, yet he did not fight to destroy. Instead, he used the starship's systems to disable the raiders' weapons temporarily, jamming their engines and sending clear warnings. "Leave now or be incapacitated," he projected into the void, his voice amplified by the ship's AI systems. One by one, the raider ships disengaged, retreating in confusion and fear. Elias watched their departure, knowing that they had underestimated both human ingenuity and the starship's true capabilities. The council representatives, who had observed the battle in real time, were stunned. They had expected destruction, yet what they witnessed was precision, control, and restraint. Humans, they realized, were not only capable of awakening forgotten power, they were capable of wielding it responsibly. Elias deactivated the ship's defensive systems and floated in the observation deck, watching the distant stars. "You see," he said softly to the ship, "we protect, we don't conquer, we lead, we don't destroy." The starship responded with a soft, steady hum, almost like a sigh of relief. Together, they had faced the first true test of the galaxy's scrutiny. In the days that followed, Elias continued to explore the ship's full potential. He unlocked systems that allowed for rapid travel across sectors, defense mechanisms that could neutralize threats without causing casualties, and advanced communication networks that could relay messages across light years. Every discovery reinforced one truth. This starship, guided by human intelligence and courage, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. News of their success spread quickly. Aliens who had once dismissed humanity began to reconsider. Humans were no longer insignificant observers in the galaxy. They were innovators, problem solvers, and guardians. And the starship, fully awakened, was a symbol of that truth. Yet Elias knew that respect alone was not enough. The galaxy still held danger, envy, and challenges. Other powers would test him, seeking to claim the starship for themselves. But he welcomed them. Every encounter would be a chance to demonstrate that humans, when guided by intelligence and morality, could rise to any challenge. One evening, Elias stood in the observation deck, gazing at the endless expanse of stars. The hum of the engines vibrated through his body, steady and strong. He placed his hand on the console, feeling the connection between himself and the ship. Together they had faced pirates, impressed alien councils, and awakened a relic thought lost. But this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of civilizations, wonders, and unknown dangers. And yet, Elias felt no fear. With patience, skill, and courage, humanity could face any challenge, and the starship would be their greatest ally. The council representatives contacted him again, this time with a proposal. "Human," one spoke, "you have demonstrated wisdom, courage, and control. We invite you to join the council, to act as a mediator, a protector, and a symbol of balance in the galaxy." Elias considered the offer. It was tempting, yet he knew his path was still one of exploration and understanding. "I will accept," he said finally, "but on one condition. The starship remains free to act in the interest of peace and protection. We do not seek power for its own sake." The council hesitated, then agreed. They had witnessed the human-mechanic partnership firsthand and recognized the wisdom in his words. The galaxy, it seemed, was ready to acknowledge that humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, guardians, and leaders in their own right. As Elias prepared the starship for its next journey, he reflected on the lessons he had learned. Power alone was meaningless without understanding. Strength was nothing without responsibility. And ingenuity, courage, and patience could awaken even the most forgotten giants. The starship hummed beside him, its lights glowing with energy and purpose. Together, they were ready to explore the galaxy, to protect the innocent, and to show civilizations everywhere that humans, though once underestimated, could achieve greatness. And so, the forgotten starship, guided by a human mechanic, rose fully into the galaxy's awareness. No longer rejected, no longer overlooked, it became a symbol of humanity's true power. Aliens and civilizations everywhere would learn a simple but undeniable truth: underestimate humans at your peril. Elias looked out at the stars, a sense of wonder and determination filling him. The galaxy stretched endlessly before him, full of mysteries, challenges, and possibilities. And for the first time, he felt that humans truly belonged among the stars, not as observers, but as participants, innovators, and guardians. The starship's engines pulsed gently, a steady rhythm that echoed Elias' heartbeat. Together, human and machine, they were ready for anything. The galaxy was watching, and humanity's time had come. With a soft touch on the control panel, Elias activated the ship's full systems. Lights glowed along the corridors, engines powered up, and energy fields hummed in harmony. The starship lifted from the station, gliding effortlessly into the black expanse of space. The journey ahead would be long, filled with challenges and discoveries, but Elias was ready. And so was the ship. The forgotten starship was no longer forgotten. Humanity had awakened it, not with violence but with patience, intelligence, and courage. And the galaxy would never forget either of them. The stars stretched endlessly, promising new adventures, new allies, and new opportunities for humans to shine. And Elias knew one thing for certain: Humans were no longer underestimated. They were a force of ingenuity, courage, and wisdom. And together with the Starship, they would show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of.